Well, hello! Welcome to another episode of Scrawndawgin, but this is not just any other episode. This is actually a very special episode, as this is the first time I have ever brought a guest into the realm of Scrawndawgin. This is a guest that you're, of course, going to know very well if you follow Counter-Strike or esports in general. Alex Machine Richardson took time out of his morning to go with me to a boulangerie to get a couple croissants and a coffee and sit down and just talk. You guys know the formula for Scrawndawgin. It's not always about Counter-Strike. It's just about this space, these people, and the insights that we feel the need to share. So Alex is somebody who I've always looked to and looked up to for his professionalism, his commentary, his playfulness, and his insights. I think Alex is somebody who has great perspective on many different things and a very cool demeanor as well. Somebody who I think exudes comfort in who they are, who they've become, and the idea that we are all changing constantly and hopefully improving. So to Alex, I say thank you for sitting down again this morning. It was a wonderful way to start my day. So I hope you guys enjoy it. It was a glorious morning, and I'm very excited to share it with you. Enjoy.
Yeah, I was full of beans. I don't know, I've done morning shifts. In fact, at ESL, I've done a lot of morning shifts for the last couple of years, and I've seen a way in which that feels nice. Just because it can feel like a job at times, like more like as in a more normal routine. I get up, I'll do my hotel breakfast, morning coffee, clock in, be doing the casting, and I do love like that 5, 6 p.m. if you're lucky enough. Like we had some days in Rio. You finish, the sun's still shining, you're back at the hotel, you go and have a little swim, a little walk on the beach, turn on the games, have a beer on the balcony watching the rest of the Counter-Strike with the morning shift. Like I can see the perks of both. And I know that Chad personally prefers that morning shift routine, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm thriving in this.
Yeah.
Having like a couple of hours to kind of to myself, and being able to kind of determine how I start my day. I come in, I feel like I'm more equipped to, what do you say, give myself a little part of myself or whatever it is?
Yeah, to share myself.
Yeah, share.
To share my
That's
mood.
a good word for
right?
it.
I think that, so there's a couple things I wanted to talk to you about, as this is a great chance.
Ducks?
Ducks? No, duck rape wasn't on the list.
It wasn't.
But, hey man,
Good
that's
grief.
the beauty of it. Because to set the scene for everybody,
Yeah,
this
can
is
you
this is where we are right now. We're in a park that is mere minutes from our hotel in Paris. To tie it into the conversation of kind of the routine that we're able to throw up in the morning before getting into casting. Set and setting really isn't something that's in our control when it comes to commentary. You don't really know where the hotel is going to be. You don't know what's going to be around it. And this classic tale of commentators kind of falling victim to the monotony of hotel life, I think comes from not having things accessible to you, right? And it depends on who you're with and what type of person you are and what sort of things you seek out in order to fill the time before and after commentary. But I think that all of those things affect casting. The day before, the day after, it's all interlinked. Like, you can't have a smooth event without having, I think, multiple good days in a row. And that's where all of a sudden these things become so much more important. So in this case, right now, we're sat on a water-bound gazebo, essentially.
You did
right?
very well with gazebo.
Yeah, there's a park next to the hotel. There's been a rock climbing gym, 3 minutes, literally 3 minutes. So no transport time, no stress. You can go exercise, head back, shower, hit your shuttle. Everything's been good. It's like, this is a very good location in terms of things that are conveniently close.
It's true. Irina's not too far, right? I've
Yes.
accidentally walked there a couple of times.
Like 12-minute walk.
Right.
So, are we near all of the biggest tourist attractions in Paris? No. Do we need to be in order to be in the greatest mood possible? No.
Are they only like 4 tram stops away if you wanted for €1.90? Like,
Yes. Yes, they are.
Yeah.
So, the location has been really nice here in Paris, and I think that's helped with casting. And right now, as we record Scrawndawgin, We're sat in a park.
The birds are singing. The sun is shining.
The flowers are blooming. It smells fantastic. There's very few people, and yet some of the people that we have seen, because, you know, small world, when Counter-Strike comes to a city for a major, it does feel like that city just gets taken over by it. That was my experience in Antwerp. We would go out at night, and you'd just be like, you know, walking down the road 20 minutes from the hotel, and you might hear somebody who drives by on a lime go, Scrawny! You know, it's like, you've got to keep your presentation up in that regard, because sometimes, you know, we're often smaller events for whatever reason in different cities, and you don't feel that presence. I feel eyes on me when I'm in Copenhagen.
Yeah.
I think that there's a big Counter-Strike culture there, and we're so often there that, like, running into people in Denmark is a very frequent occurrence. It doesn't always happen elsewhere personally, but I did, for the first time in Montreal, organically find somebody who knew about Counter-Strike and who knew me. And it was at my rock climbing gym.
Amazing.
Yeah, so...
How did that interaction go down?
Well, I wasn't sure at first. I wasn't...
Were you getting looked at? You getting scared?
Yeah, I could just kind of feel it. But, you know, it's the climbing gym. You've experienced it now.
Yeah.
It's like, it is a social environment. So I thought... I didn't think much of it at first, but then there was a climbing competition that my gym had a few sponsored climbers. And I was watching the stories on Instagram of the climbing gym, and I recognized one of the people, and so I was checking out his profile because he was a staff at the climbing gym. And when I was checking out his profile, the moment I clicked on it, it said, "You both follow Henry G. You both follow Smooya." And I was like, "Whoa, like, what?" And then it took, and so then it all clicked. And I waited to see him the next time in person, and I kind of approached him as like, "Hey, I don't mean to be like, you know who I am, but also, what a coincidence." So hello. Obviously, you live in Malta.
Yeah.
Does it happen there at all? Have you had those kinds of occurrences, or do you feel like Malta is off the radar in CS?
I've had maybe less than a handful, more than one. But I've always liked it. I've always really kind of cherished the way we get to kind of experience, you know, being seen in that way. Like when I was in Cologne, or like when I use Cologne as an example, Cologne in the same way as Copenhagen, it feels like when the event is on, you know, I'll be cycling around or on the e-scooter, whatever, and you just see gaming jerseys everywhere, you know, like in the shops, there's like Na'Vi jerseys, and you put them proliferating around the city, and it does feel like kind of Counter-Strike's there. And during those events, you know, you are kind of, you do feel seen, people will be shouting your name across the street, whatever, and kind of asking to take a picture, which is always like so cool, like such a humbling experience when you're like, wow, like me, little old me, sure, man, yeah. And I really cherish those moments, because I know they'll be few and far between in my grand total of years on this earth. But enjoying them when they happen, and I do like that we can turn it off though. Like as in, if I go back to Malta or if I go back home, wherever it is, you know, we're just some guy, some dude. But when all of our niche, passionate gamers are all in one spot, we get to kind of, you know, get to feel seen in a different way. It's cool.
My experience with majors, hold on, I'm going to enjoy this breeze.
Yeah, that's hitting hard. Oh, this is doing wonders for my soul, Connor.
Yeah?
Yeah, I got sunshine, I got fresh air, and I'm out of the house way past my, I would normally still be wrapped up in my cocoon.
Right. Which we fought valiantly today.
We did.
Yeah,
I know
that comforter was warm.
I'm going to feel better because of it.
All right. So my experience with majors was always that, like, that feeling of getting recognized is elevated. I wanted to bring up a story that, because I find myself spending more time with you when we are at events together, but we work for different companies regularly, so it is kind of only at majors or when ESL brings me in.
Yep.
And thank you, ESL, for not drawing that line and including us at Katowice and anything else that you know, they'd like to offer, because we're always down. But so my stories with you, like my experiences of just like, you know, the Counter-Strike circus, they're not as frequent as a bunch of others, but I do enjoy spending time with you. Yeah. And I feel like we've got some stuff in common, at the same time as like also sharing a very common position within Counter-Strike, right?
Well, like we're on a very short list of people that are doing the whole play-by-play shenanigan.
Yep. Yeah. So with that in mind, I always think back to I hope you don't mind me sharing this story, but when you were in Copenhagen for the last time at a Blast event,
Yeah.
it's when you were in the Royal Arena, when you got back in stage hosting, and we got in one night. There wasn't much to do. I feel like other people had already kind of gone to sleep, and in contrast to where we are now in Paris, the whole setup next to the Royal Arena isn't one of those like organically, enjoyable locations. There's the shopping mall,
Yeah.
and there's the venue, and there's the hotel lobby. And if you're not buying $20 gin and tonics,
Yeah.
then you're either upstairs in your room, or it's not the finest location. But there are great places in Copenhagen, and I remember this evening we said, we're like, it's still kind of early. Me, you, and Mohan got back, we had a couple of drinks, and we're just like, yo, let's continue this night. We didn't really know where to go, so we headed downtown Copenhagen. We headed to like Newhound, and having spent so much more time in Copenhagen, I felt like I could kind of show you the cool spots, right?
Most definitely. I was not equipped.
Yeah.
No.
I'm like, all right, well, we got to find the cool spots in the evening. And so we head downtown. We had the confidence of a few drinks, but what we didn't have was phone battery. So if you remember this.
No, it's ringing bells.
Yeah, we kind of just wandered around, which was really nice just to begin with.
Yeah.
Just hanging out, talking. It was like a nice weather, quiet evening. We get to Newhound, to Christiania was our destination. Pretty picturesque place there. And I always thought, like, Counter-Strike is this wild thing that somehow brings so many different demographics of people together, that while we were minding our own business, just kind of soaking up the cool vibe of Christiania in a summer evening, that one of the peddlers on that street kind of gave us a little side eye. And normally I'm not making moves. It's not the guys I'm going there to talk to.
Sure.
But Buddy recognized us.
Yeah.
And he kind of like toyed around with it, like, where do I know you from? And we just played with him in that sense. We're like, I don't know, where could it possibly?
Good question.
Yeah, what do you think?
Maybe when we go to school together.
Yeah.
Leicestershire.
Leicestershire, yeah. You're from the UK.
I'm from the UK.
He wasn't. I don't think he was on his A game. We'll put it that way.
Sure.
So it's fun. That to me was always just one of those hilarious moments where I'm like, how are we in this situation where I'm just showing you, I'm showing you around, trying to share space with you, and then we've got a weed hustler.
Yep.
Coming up and trying to talk Counter-Strike. I'm like, man, can we not escape it? And in a fun way. I always remember that night just because our phones were dead, so we just continued to explore.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, we can't call an Uber, we can't get a Dan taxi. I think I know a taxi stop this way.
Right.
And we just kept walking and we just kept going. And I think that, that was one of those times where with no phone, I found myself enjoying the moment.
100%.
Right? And I want to talk about the moment in a couple of ways, a couple of ideas I have. Like, there's always the moment in commentary, but there's also a moment throughout each and every day, right? The presence, being present.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really important for what we do casting-wise, which if you have thoughts on, please share. But I also think it's really cool, something you do particularly is your photography. That is you capturing a moment. And so that's something you do that no other caster really does. I think you have, and we'll all agree in this space, like a really cool eye for photography. And I've been walking with you on that evening, on these mornings, where suddenly you just get that, like, I see it in your eye, that like you capture something and it clicks in your head and you want that and you stop for it. And I think that's really cool. So what does the moment really mean to you in terms of photography and commentary and holding on to it or capturing it, etc.?
I think it's more like wide and macro, like the living in the present thing. I think it's so universal, universally good advice in terms of like, like that Master Oogway quote from Kung Fu Panda.
Let's hear it.
The little turtle. Oh, man.
Let's hear your Oogways.
My Oogway.
Yeah.
It's to do with...
Give me the Oogway, Alex.
Oh, man. Okay, can I bring it up?
Sure, do you? By all means.
Because I think that will get me exactly where
your
I
point.
want to go.
Go for it.
So Master Oogway, a very wise old turtle.
Turtle or tortoise?
I never get it right. We saw some in the water in this like very park.
Okay, turtles then.
So it's a turtle.
Maui lectured me yesterday.
Right, I needed to hear that. Okay, you are too concerned with what was and what will be. There is a saying, yesterday is history, tomorrow a mystery, but today is a gift. and that's why it's called the present. Thank you, Mr. Uruguay.
Yeah, all right. That does resonate.
Yeah, but I think it's just because, it happened, like, oh God, I'm going to be, excuse me, this is just how my brain works. We might be bouncing around a bit.
That's
I promise
fine,
it's
man.
going somewhere.
Yeah.
But you know Sonder, the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, is this thing online, kind of old internet now, but it still exists. And it's essentially where people would ascribe new words for things that didn't have a definition, like a catch-all term for.
Okay.
So, and people would vote on ones. It's one of the most upvoted and cool words that isn't in official dictionaries, but it's called Sonder. And Sonder is the definition of, or the definition of Sonder is the realization that everyone around you, every blurred face in the back of the photo, every light in the buildings in the city, in the red lights that are looking at the traffic in LA represents a life as complex as your own. And like having that realization. And I was hit with that like a truck when I started getting my early travel opportunities with ESL. Like I wasn't clued in on who I was and how I was, but I was given so much opportunity to like see all the ways in which people are, all the different spawn points, all the ways in which those circumstances are out of their control, in their control, and I just kind of was, overpowered with like, oh my God, there's so much going on for everyone.
Yes.
And I could see how that was like something I wanted. I didn't want to be leaving events and like, they go, wow, where did you go? Oh, I was in Moscow, I was in Sao Paulo. Really, what did you do? And it was just a hotel. It was just a hotel and a taxi and a convention center or an arena and then back to the hotel. And I had nothing to kind of report, I had nothing to kind of demonstrate that I've been there. And yeah, I think the photography kind of started there because it doesn't have to be much, but like just having something to record the whole day. Like we could have done something all day, and then I'll have seen a really cool like way in which a bendy pipe lines up with a potential cloud, and it kind of looks funny if I crouch down and put it in the right composition, and that kind of thing was just. I didn't need much, and I really find it invasive to take pictures of people, even though that's even more direct and easy. But I just like the way in which that started. It encouraged me to be looking around all the time. Things that normally would just distract me, I can actually just focus on, and you decide how much something means. Like the existentialism. I do like Mr. Sartre and his conclusions in the sense that like, if you really focused, if you put your phone down or whatever it was, and you went shopping at a supermarket, you'd be overcome with the joy of and the spectacle of it all. Even though it's something as mundane as a daily or weekly, bi-weekly activity, whatever it may be.
Dead on.
And you can it's up to you. Perception is reality. You can just look around and you decide how much meaning everything has.
You travel with with like a camera as well, not just on your phone.
Bought it in Copenhagen actually.
Oh, really?
When I was doing that blast event, yeah.
Okay.
Because I've been taking photos with my phone. And I've been really enjoying that, and I wanted something to replicate the ease of that, where I can just, because I had to, you can just pinch zoom, and then I could frame everything really nicely, and get the composition I wanted without having to kind of crank off a lens, plug in another one, and like have a big bag. Because I've done that before at uni, and I hated it. Like I hated photography. Yeah. It was just such a uncomfortable, and like it felt very scientific. Like we were learning about studio lights and angles and all of that stuff. And I found basically just did a lot of research on what would be able to replicate this kind of the ease of self-photography, and I found this little Sony pocket camera. I can take it everywhere, and I realized that was main priority was just having something I didn't care about carrying around.
Yes.
The second I had like something chunky attached to my hip, it would kill the whole point.
The ease of travel,
yeah,
the convenience of it.
like this fancy little new potty setup.
Yeah, I was gonna say, working with the 13.3 inch small little lapel.
13.3 inch
Asus ROG Flow X13.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, you want to describe the scene?
Yeah. So again, the danger of Scrawndawgin on the road is you never know what environment you'll find yourself in.
We've had some surprises already.
From an initial sexual assault between ducks to a young man stomping on baguettes.
I would assume it's like a stale baguette.
Yes, in order to probably, I'd presume, attract more ducks, which is going to be cute. We'll be surrounded by it. I'm all down with it.
Yeah.
I'm glad you've found a way to appreciate your opportunities in travel.
Yeah, and just to try and be in the present.
Right? To capture a moment. And and this is where I'll follow up with that's the process of capturing moment. What about sharing moments? Because do we get to see the majority of your photos? As someone who is just on your Instagram or wherever else?
Not really.
No, eh?
No. It's true. But I in terms of sharing moments, I mean, there's two definitions of that. Like sharing it as a la social media or sharing it with people. And I think that's sharing moments with people is kind of that's the whole beauty of it, is that it's unique to the people that are there in the moment. And a lot of the times that's enough to make it special. Like, it can be something quite mundane, but if you're all there and in the same headspace, you can take it away in a positive way.
And as opposed to having a picture of those people in that space, you just resonate with whatever angle it is you found, whatever
whatever
beauty. That view is. It just clicks with you. You remember it.
Beauty in the mundane.
Yeah.
I think I think I'm particularly interested. Like, I love, and I know it's like a bit of a fucking taboo word these days, but like the minimal composition, as in, if I put this whole golden ratio thing, like it looks like a seashell.
Sure.
And when photography exists in everywhere you look. But it's so cool that like if I was to frame things that obey these golden ratios, I can put something quite mundane there, and you'll find it unusually stimulating and inexplicably so. Sometimes you're kind of looking at them. Why is that window with the shadow of a lamp kind of? Why is it tickling my pickle? It shouldn't be,
But it does. It does something. It does. Yeah, cool.
Really pretty, really pretty.
In casting, to transition.
Yeah. Well, there's moments in casting, is there not?
There are.
I see that segue.
Yeah.
Nice.
There are
Very nice, Mr. Scrawny.
So, before we get into casting, too specifically, I'm going to use a chance to just double check that everything's running smoothly.
Yeah, go for it.
Because this would be a real shame to lose. And you are the test dummy, after all.
Happy to be.
Cheers.
Privileged to be.
All right. So things seem good.
Wonderful.
Besides the stomping of bread.
But actually, if anything, I think it just makes it more authentic.
It does, right?
The stomping of a baguette in the middle of a podcast in Paris.
Yeah, right? Yeah, good.
The ducks are raping, the sun is shining.
Oh my God!
It was horrible, man.
It was horrible.
Pinning her face under the wall.
Yeah. I didn't know how to address it at the time.
Sorry.
Because it was if it had happened halfway through, we'd at least have a mood set. But that was just out the gate.
And I'd have been, I could have been. I couldn't stay quiet. I couldn't stand by.
Birds are kind of ruining your moods as of late.
Oh, dude, no. Yeah, you're right. That's true.
They're
back to back. I don't know what I did to these birds, but word has spread.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they tweeted.
The battle has begun, man. Okay, so casting also has its moments. But prior to casting ever being in your life, prior to broadcast ever being in your life, I wanted to talk to you about another weird coincidence that we share. This absolutely random chance that while growing up, both you and I played the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz.
You played the Tin Man.
I was the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz. So I have an episode of Scrawndawgin called The Performer.
Yeah.
Where I go back and discuss how...
Oh, the bread's working.
Hi, buddy.
Whoa, it's a party. Oh no, he's chasing
It's actually a war.
No. Duck drama.
4 ducks.
You played the Tin Man.
Baguette.
Let's not breeze past that. Dude, I thought that was a unique to me experience.
No. And we've never talked about it, but I've kind of kept, it's one thing to have been theater kids.
Sure.
It's another thing to have been in the same play. It's just this very weird coincidence that we share comparable places in the CSGO space while also having been the exact same role. So
amazing.
Crazy, right?
Can you age yourself as well? You must have, what were you? Just a young whippersnapper?
I was probably I'd probably say 12 or 13.
Okay.
Yeah, because I grew up in a small town, so there's not a lot of those are the standard activities that almost every kid went through, right? And our town, was kind of known for its theater, the theater of Lac Brome. Lac Brome, where they're famous for ducks, actually.
Yeah, in the lake.
In the lake, So, having done that, that's where I kind of first had performance enter my life. And therefore, this elevated sense of attention.
Yeah.
And I think most commentators can admit, or are happy to admit, in my case, that performance and attention and theatrics, that's where I'm happiest. That is what feels like, not to be dramatic, that feels like my purpose.
Right. And there are some people on the complete opposite
end, yes, who just love Counter-Strike and who commentate like gods as well. I always think of Vince. Vince is the contrast, and he'll be the first to say it, that like he's not about that spotlight part. But I think you and I share that. You strike me as a theatrical person.
That's fair enough.
I respect it, and it resonates with me.
Yeah.
So when did performance enter your life?
If you asked that question to my parents, they would say, like, from the moment I came out of the womb, like,
okay.
I don't know, apparently I was a bit of a nightmare child. Like, before I could talk or, crawl, I was demanding attention. Like, if I was not in your arms, eye to eye, looking at each other, or if I'm asleep, you put me down, I'm awake again. I can tell I don't have your attention anymore.
Right.
I was a little nightmare child. And it translated from there into, like, I've been told stories of me, like they're taking me to a wedding when I was a little one, and doing a full breakdance routine, freestyle breakdance routine for the entire wedding reception, and slowly building a crowd. I don't know, like some guy was playing the piano and I was breakdancing to the piano.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, man. Like I don't have any recollection of this, but my parents tell a story very fondly of their little breakdancing boy.
So it's natural.
I think so. Me and my sister would do performances, like we'd come and get mum and dad to sit down in the living room and we'd do like duets together, like full choreographed routines. Like at one point I had like, those like bamboo canes that you have in the garden?
Yeah. Well, no, but I'm following.
You want your vines to grow up the bamboo, so like.
Okay, sure.
It makes a nice sound when you hit cardboard boxes with it. But that evolved from a weapon into a prop during. My old bamboo? I don't know what that's from. What musical that's from? Me old bamboo, couldn't get it better than me old bamboo. Well, I did a whole piece. I did some. When you jump over the jibbly wibbly.
Yeah.
Either way, I'd actually like taped a coat hanger to the top of it, so it was like a hook. I don't know what I was doing, but I was always performing.
Always performing, yeah.
I was, yeah.
So, I think there are people like that. I think and not everybody. I think unfortunately has the outlet for it, because on the contrast side, I didn't have any siblings really growing up around me. They were kind of from a different family, so It was like just, we didn't share time. I think my performance comes from just being imaginative and just filling loneliness with whatever I created.
Right.
I think that's why I'm into like impersonations and characters, because there's constantly characters in my mind that like don't always come to the surface.
Impersonations, we're talking like kind of familiar characters, or are you building your own characters? I didn't know about this branch on your tree.
Yeah, well, I think voices, accents,
Yes.
These kinds of things. I can't make an accent without picturing the person who comes out of it.
Yeah.
It's like when we do our Scouse one.
Yeah. Seriously, like what the fuck?
Exactly. It's
good.
I've got to put my body into it. It's
yeah.
and that's my way of performing.
Nice.
Excuse the abrupt transition, everybody. We had all-out warfare break out here on our
multiple fronts.
On our water gazebo. So we took a little break. The ducks have dispersed for the most part. There's still some stragglers. It's now the pigeons eating what's left of the bread, and we no longer have any company here with us.
That bird song is nice though.
Yes, and the sun is back out.
It is.
So, we lost a few minutes, but that's okay, Alex. I bring up, after this breeze.
Yeah, let it flow through us.
I bring up now, good to know where your performance comes from. Good to know that it's innate within you. But
Sure.
It'd be a tragedy not to pick your brain about casting with this chance.
Oh.
Right?
I mean, we have, prior to microphones being attached to us, definitely bonded over. It's a very unique opportunity to be a commentator for a game as intricate as Counter-Strike, where commentary normally stops. Sorry for talking over your introduction, but
go ahead.
But yeah, in terms of commentary, like this particular job for this particular game, there are conversations that yourself and I can have that are very like, we're both in such unique positions that it's very rare that you find someone that's kind of doing exactly what you're doing.
Yes.
And has that similar background in performance to the extent where we might be attempting it in a similar way. Because like you said, some people get there in different ways.
Yes.
And are different people with different drives.
There are many great CS:GO casters, but on a personal level, there's not as many that I resonate with as much as you. So I think that's why whenever I have this thought of like, wow, we share a very comparable experience, not just professionally, but I think like more so even beforehand, who we were, who we've become, etc.
For sure.
So whenever we have that thought, I remember specifically, IEM Rio, Brazil Major, I had just done the Cloud9 MOUZ quarterfinals. That was my last game of the event. Thank you ESL for putting me on a quarterfinal, as all casters should be when they're at a major. That's the minimum.
100%.
And I felt fucking fantastic after that cast, because my experience in Antwerp at the semifinal, it's so, there's just this unachievable expectation with majors, or at least that's been my experience with them so far, because it's like, it took me 5 years of commentary to get to my first major.
Yeah.
And that's what feels like 5 years of doing something to build up to that 1 point. And obviously you want your best game ever to be at that moment, because if it's the peak of what feels like your career, then you want all these things to come together, but that's just not the nature of Counter-Strike. It's not the nature of casting.
No.
And after Rio, I had that chip on my shoulder where Antwerp didn't hit like I had hoped it would.
Sure.
And in Rio, well, it was a quarterfinal. And quarterfinals aren't supposed to be phenomenal. But that MOUZ versus Cloud9 game, after casting all of those seasons of WePlay and being very in touch with the story of MOUZ, I just felt like, in hindsight, that was the playoff game at a major that I was destined for.
Right.
That was my moment with the self, because everybody else was satisfied with Antwerp, with my performance. People praised me and whatnot, and I'm grateful for that. I think it was well received, but it wasn't received well by me.
But you put it on a pedestal. You
Exactly.
had this expectation.
Yes, and after Rio, the next morning you came up to me, and that's the first time that you said like, hey man, amazing that we can share this space, and amazing that we can bounce off of one another, because I think that being surrounded by people who are excellent at their job is how I become better at my job.
100%.
You learn from one another, you adapt to one another, and you also just share these, the success of any CSGO event is based on the hard work of every member of talent. Without a good broadcast from start to finish, we're not getting the best out of ourselves.
Yeah, but
that's my take.
I would counter that, because I think what you're talking about and the references you've given also draws attention to the other factor, which is that we are also completely at the will and whimsy of the game and the Counter-Strike. And that's something that I've made peace with, and something that was an example given with the Antwerp and the quarterfinal catching you off guard in a positive way.
Such a
is through the idea that and something myself and Chad have had many dialogues about is like we are not here to deceive, we're not here to lie, or try and because it's easy to fall into that trap of feeling like, okay, well I'm here to put on a show, the Counter-Strike's not delivering, I need to kind of compensate.
Fill that gap.
Well, yeah, because it's especially when I've done grand finals, where it's not, where the Counter-Strike is not particularly enthralling. It feels very, very kind of apparent of where it's going, and as a viewer, you kind of there's less to be excited about. There's less of these intense mid rounds and questions we don't have answers to. We get it at the end of the round. Like Counter-Strike can come in so many different shapes and forms, and I think that just realizing that we're there to be an authentic lens and articulation of what's happening, why it's exciting, why it's not.
Being real.
Yeah. But whilst also doing it in a, I think there is a good way and a bad way to handle a average game of Counter-Strike, and I'm still getting there.
Of course.
I'm still getting there. Like, I mean, when the game is good, we're not thinking at all. You don't have to think because
in the moment.
Yeah, because you're in the present. Because you can't think about anything else. You're being sucked into another story, a brand new story from start to finish in 1 minute fucking 55 or whatever it is. You know, depending on bomb plants, and you get the individual, these kind of individual heroes' journeys that we can touch on, and we're all in tune with because we care about the game. We're following these personalities, and we know that there's been sacrifice and there's been dedication, and so when it does come down to, you know, the two of those heroes battling it out in something that we understand, you know, what it means to them. And we can hopefully articulate a little bit of, like, you know, community-wide, lack of a better word, empathy, compassion, just so that we're all just on the same page, feeling a little bit about what the players are feeling. That's when those big games happen, and people are left feeling like they experienced it with you as a commentator.
Right.
And I think that's kind of where I'm trying to get to. Like, I definitely have had multiple games where I've told myself, like, this is the big one, you know, this has to be the big one. God, like, very early in my career, I was given opportunities. Like 2015 Cologne, I was casting with like Pansy and Verflaren, and I'm fresh, I'm green, and it's like arena Counter-Strike, and just trying to somehow, bonjour, somehow, like, like you're putting so much pressure on yourself. It's like, here it comes, this is your game, this is the one, make your mark, and you overthink it, you overcook it, whatever it may be.
I'm grateful for those moments, though, because and this is my realization since, and I'm curious if you feel the same, where it's like going through that disappointment or going through a great match that catches you off guard suddenly.
Yeah, that's good.
Anytime one of those events happens, you just get a chance to reflect on it and learn from it. And the more these experiences stack up, the more I realize, as you've alluded to, it's not in my control. The only thing I can do is be ready for when it happens.
Yeah.
And that given enough chances, you're going to go through that, you know, spread of experiences, the match that doesn't give, the one that is perfect but not at the right time.
Yeah.
The G2 elimination before the playoffs.
Yeah.
But each and every one of these moments is still a piece of history, and a viewer who is sharing all of this with us can remember something that isn't what we expect them to remember, right? Like, I always think you never know when you're gonna make a fan.
Sure.
You never know what line, what joke, what moment, what game, if it's a B stream on an online season of Pro League.
Yeah.
But all it takes is like that click, and it's for that reason that I think, again, being present in commentary and just surrendering yourself to what you're casting is the number one like tip to commentary in my mind.
For sure. And I think the honesty helps as well, because then you get into territory of like genuine disbelief. Like, if like it was something I used to be so cautious of, because, you know, like, I would say, and it's obviously when our industry isn't as developed, so it's not like particularly tangible, but like I feel like I grew up in kind of the old school style of commentary, in the sense that, like, you know, we're expecting a good game here and blah, blah, but actually, if I come in and say, well, these guys should get blown out, like, I mean, you know, we got world rank X versus world rank Y, and the last 3 times they've played, you know, whatever the color guys fed me, that we can all sit there and be quite genuine with our reactions. Like, yeah, you know, this is actually, this game is not supposed to be close. And if we've come to that conclusion and everyone's equipped with it, when it starts to become close, you know, it's within the honest framing, we can be more excited when things are deviating from the expectation. I think that I used to think that was a bad thing, or like I was kind of trained, conditioned to think that, like, you know, we are responsible for how entertaining it is, but you do have to also be comfortable with I'm getting distracted by the ducks. But yeah, you also have to be comfortable saying, yo, this shouldn't be close, but when it is, we get to really fucking run with it. You know?
And go wild.
Yeah.
And you've gotten wild this year. I think that you actually have broken through new ground in the CSGO casting space.
Please elaborate.
Ready? All right. You've done something that, as far as I'm aware, hasn't been done before, and something that I think is deserving of credit.
Okay.
So, obviously in the pandemic era, online Counter-Strike, you were one of the casters who showed adaptability really well and kind of, created this like whisper cast where you recognized your surroundings, your environment, and you found the perfect way to make the best of that new environment, right? We've come back, you've changed it, but we talk about Alex Machine Richardson and whisper casting in the online era, and I think that's why so many people fell in love with you during that time. But now that we're back in events and we've got the big crowds and the trophy lifts that are come back, I'm somebody who prides myself on those trophy lift moments, right? I think that's where I feel as though my skill set shines, and so I pay attention a lot to those going into games, coming out of games. You can't prepare yourself for everything that can happen when a match is live, but you can prepare yourself for the result and the outcome and the entrance. And I think that starting strong, ending strong, two things you can always do as a caster to be ready for. My point being, Katowice 2023, the G2 trophy lift. Traditionally, a trophy lift goes, game is over, you're obviously excited when 16 hits the scoreboard. Right. That dead period that is hopefully as short as possible between players winning and players getting to the trophy lift. And the classic hoorah of that, the formula that I have witnessed and I think replicated and then fine-tuned my own way, was that as they get to the stage, you're making whatever final narratives it is you want, and then in the trophy lift, you scream G2.
Yeah.
And myself and so many others would just drop it there, and that's kind of been the trend. But in Katowice 23, you and Chad had what I think is, hands down so far this year, the best trophy lift.
Yo,
and
thank you.
I look back at 22 and think, mine were great, but now I'm reflecting as in like, ooh, I've got a chance to make them greater. And just to touch back to, this is the point of having great colleagues around you. We elevate one another.
100%.
The way the two of you bounced back, and this is what I think makes it so legendary, the way you two bounced back after the trophy was lifted. ESL have confetti falling, epic music playing, fire and pyrotechnics from the stage, and instead of just hanging it up with G2, you and Chad went down the list of each player and what this meant historically in that moment. JKS, the king of Katowice, bop, bop, back and forth, and it just continued to ramp in waves, and then, a more emotional downtrend to somebody's point, but then you'd crescendo a second. It felt like 3-4 trophy lifts in one.
Cool.
And I don't know if that was prepared or planned or something that you thought of ahead of time. I just think that in the heat of the moment, that is when commentary can get lost. You might write down lines, you might be prepared.
Of times, yeah.
When the emotions are boiling in your blood, it's so easy to forget about what you had ready. And yet, I was amazed with that trophy lift.
That's really, really kind of you. And it's funny that stands out to you, because that was something that we'd been more conscious of and cognizant of like, this is something we can elevate and be better at. And I think for a while I was kind of overconfident, because I'd done a lot of trophy lifts from the desk perspective, and I had like a flow chart that I'd talk to producers about, because I hated it when trophy moments were misexecuted. Like, it's one of those things where I really think like there's a story that has to be told in that moment, and sometimes it doesn't always get like perfectly executed. You have weird dead air, or you don't have enough of it, or like when I was a desk coach, I would want us to fade the desk in after that G2, immediately give me desk, and then at our own discretion, we would then chip in with those little extra bits. Like back in the day, it would be myself, Chad, and Yanko. The trophy lift would happen, casters would hit the crescendo upon the confetti, and then we would come in and we'd sprinkle all those extra nuggets in while you have those shots, and they're signing things and they're happy, and you got all those individual shots, and you remind everyone of the individuals behind the nicknames. And yeah, we kind of we just started doing that as part of this commentary wrap. It also helped because it was such this every single story. Like, I talk about this when I'm talking to people, non Counter-Strike people about my job, And it's like, you know, every single one of them, like, this is why Counter-Strike's so sick, is because all of the human beings have like a cool story. Like I can tell you, like, oh, Rops, you mean as in that kid that was doing his studies on the road, you know, a teenager from Estonia who is doing his schoolwork whilst traveling the world to play a video game? No, oh yeah, some of the best players of the older generation thought he cheated, so he got flown to London and he played in the FACEIT offices and he kicked ass, and now he's one of the best teams in the world. And that's just one of the players on FaZe. Let me tell you Carrigan's story. He wasn't just a nerdy computer kid, you know, like, you know, and you go through each one, and we've got that all over the shop. And I think the more that everyone, you know, new and old, are like equipped to see them as that, as well as the nickname and the kind of the character, the better, because it's just, it humanizes everything. Humanize is a good word. Like the more that we can kind of, you see them for the human they are, it makes it much better, much easier to celebrate their highs and to feel their lows. And the more that we're on that roller coaster with them, the more you want to tune in to feel what they're about to feel next, you know. And for the trophy lift, yeah, I definitely, I still feel like I've got a lot of, like, you know, you are also, I can see you've got it down to a science, and I can see you, like, in terms of delivery, that's something you do like, incredibly well that I want to get better at. But yeah, when it comes to those moments, I feel like there's still a lot to be done. And that G2 moment was evidence to myself and to Chad that we're like, oh shit, yeah, there's more to be done here.
Yes.
There's way more to be done here.
And that is why I bring it up, and I'm glad that you also mentioned, like, there's a burden here on production.
For sure. Like, I have a run of show in my head that I just WhatsApp, like, hey man, can we do, the mics go down, the confetti falls, blah, 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 blah.
Yep. And this is when, like, you know, there's difficulties at times when it comes to the communication and the preparation of a TO, because I've had events where, you know, I think back to Fall Finals 2022.
Yeah.
Where I had the Heroic Astralis semifinal, and that to me is my best intro, because I knew specifically when the camera was going to pan throughout the entire 180 bowl and then shoot towards the massive screen, and I hit that Copenhagen canyon.
As we're doing that.
I mean, that was months in preparation.
Yeah.
There's a content piece where you see me and Launders in a completely empty Royal Arena, me standing in the middle of the room doing the same line.
Yeah.
And from that time to the moment I pulled it off, I was just preparing it and thinking about it, and production knew. And that is when I hate when events try to half-ass or try to squeeze production to the point where it's just, let's get the show on time, and let's not have any tech delays, because there's so much more to be done. And when you sit there for that G2 trophy lift and touch on the humanness of each individual, when you elevate that the way that it was, I think that boils down to the fact that the TO and ESL gave it the due diligence and had these layers prepared, because they can elevate it to a new point that then you can run away with, right? Your commentary is the audio sensation. It's the visual elements of it as well that need to be believable. You can only go so above and beyond to, no offense, in, you know, the Malta Pro League stage, where Apex falls into, you know, gets burned by the little sparklers that's coming. It's like, if you were to have tried that there, it's so much more difficult. Like, and yet our job and the expectations that fall on us are to do that almost every time. Yeah. Right? And this is where we circle back to, like, the whole honesty element. Like, this win is historic to the 45 people in the stage.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that crowd size or anything has to do with it. I mean, I think I feel if we're using the word honesty, I'd say it's honest to its environment, but also, like, we are still just dudes playing a video game. You know, like, I think we don't want to lose that this is it's exciting because of how we got here, the people that have just done battle, who prevailed, who didn't, but, like, you know, the prestige, the way the production is executed, the way the arena feels, the atmosphere, absolutely plays a part. But I think you can be honest with that.
Excusez-moi. Bonjour.
Désolé, on est dans le milieu de quelque chose ici. Ouais,
on va chercher juste pour m'acheter une baguette. Voilà.
On n'a pas d'argent, désolé.
C'est pas grave. Bonne journée.
À toi aussi, merci.
Bonne journée.
That's an easy edit.
Yeah.
polite gentleman.
Right, well, I think we should keep it in so they can hear your fancy French. He's
Yeah.
been killing it, by the way.
I've been
Scrawndawgin,
trying, man.
listen up. This man's got bilingual.
Staying genuine to the history of everything. Yes,
Yeah, I don't know.
All that touch. Yeah,
There is
I don't
an
want to write.
entertainment thing.
Yes,
to
and
it.
I don't want to write anything off either in terms of physical environment, because this is where I always remind myself, and where I wish viewers would be reminded too, that the viewer at home still matters. You know, the viewer at home is there for these moments in CS:GO history.
We wouldn't be there without them.
Exactly. It's how we got here, and it is the vast majority of viewership as well. You know, if you don't have the privilege of getting to a CS:GO event,
Yeah.
which I wish everybody who loves this game could, at least once. And I just wish everybody who could get here, you know, got the most glorious LAN environments and the biggest stage, because it really is something else.
Oh, when you're part of one of those games, like I'm so happy. My mum, she's only been to one CS event, and it was Cologne 2022, which was like
wow.
that best of five
Yeah.
mapper. And so just like plonking her down in the VIP area of the arena, in a full arena, and 5 maps of like intense counter, like the ups and downs. The fireworks show of like what's gonna happen next? Like I thought for sure like after what was it, 7-hour day she'd be pooped, but she was like just, you know, so simple, yeah, like so he's kind of like the rock star, and like she found her favorites and she chose her teams, and she watched 5 maps of Counter-Strike and maybe had a little nap at map 5, but enjoyed the experience.
Sure, yeah.
You know what I mean? But
It is a best of 5.
But in terms of experiencing that, and like I'm glad that's like, because that's Counter-Strike at its best, when there is just that intensity, that shared euphoria.
Yes.
And like I always say it, like I'm not critical of crowds. I know that like I have that one clip from Blast when people were booing or when Shoxy, and I don't want that to be like misconstrued as like me not liking it when crowds are passionate, and like, maybe booing is part of that passion. But that was a particular thing. That was just because there was a lot of Plastic Astralis fans in the crowd.
Oh, hands down.
Right, it was very targeted towards that, because I think the best crowds are the ones that are cheering for the Counter-Strike.
Yes.
Like I just spent 3 days watching that crowd silent as someone hits like the spiciest 3 Deagle headshots that we've seen in the week of Counter-Strike. It's like you're not even making a peep for that. Yeah. You're not a fan of the game. You're just like trying to carry over this kind of football hooliganism, and I think there's a lot of really cool shit that Counter-Strike or esports has on sports in that sense. We're not just cheering because I've got, oh, you're wearing a red hat too, oh man, my red hat broke. Hey, you're wearing blue, that's the bad colour. You know, it's like, come on mate, like you've got a grown man's name on your back and it's not yours.
That's true. No, you're dead on. You're dead on. I think good on you for shutting down that. I think that one it's like that one section of extra extreme football hooliganism too, dude.
I'm not saying like peace
hooligans.
I'm not saying like fucking peace and love and like
No.
I just want everyone to have fun, or like
Yeah.
it doesn't need to be that super floaty, but like
I would like to think everyone was grateful for what you did in that one.
Yeah,
And that's heat of the moment type shit.
Yeah,
you know,
I don't
that's
know what-
your
I
passion
saw-
coming out
I was
too.
seeing
yeah.
red, bro.
No, I mean your job is to stand on that stage and laugh and dance. And
okay, everybody, Tin Man,
Yeah.
we're off to see the
Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're calling out a group of people who are going to be staring at you for the rest of the event. That took balls, dude.
I'm not gonna lie,
There's risk.
There was like 4 or 5 hours afterwards, like, what the fuck have I done?
Yeah.
What have I done?
Have
What
you
have I
put a
done?
target
What
on
have I
you?
done?
Sure. At a stage house, I mean, you're trying to cultivate that relationship with
Right.
the crowd. So like
Yeah, I
you've
thought
got
I'd
to
isolated
you
myself.
got to get them back on your side quick.
damn.
Man. Yeah, good on you. Good on you in your diverse
Dodged it.
roles in this space, man.
Yo, yeah. Casting's the real
Casting's
deal.
the goat. Dude.
Yeah,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
God, yeah.
Casting's
in terms
casting's
of
where
just
it's at.
stimulation every day.
Yes.
A different game, a different story to tell. It's all in the moment. I'm not like having to think about what I want to talk about. It's happening in front of me, and so you're just given so. I mean, it is truly like there is no job quite like it, and I mean we've both kind of talked about it before, but like it is such a unique role that we get to fulfill within a unique and niche space. It's just
Are
very
you
special.
are you grateful that your trajectory in esports broadcast went, like if you look at the roles you went
I
from one
wouldn't
after
change a
another?
thing. I would not change
Right.
a thing.
Because when I listen to your casting, I think, you know, in this space there are parallels between yourself and Chad and me and Mohan, where our styles are similar, right? We have defined roles.
Yeah.
I think, you know, Chad's got a little more play-by-play juice in him than Mohan does, and yet what I think you have when I listen sometimes, I just wish that I could extract more knowledge from Launders at times, because he has so much to say, and I think, I always just feel like I'm a student when I'm listening to Mohan speak, and that, his reactions are also great when the time comes, but we've always said to respect one another's role, that we won't do it at all.
Yeah.
And I will never analyze better than him. He will never play-by-play better than me. So let's not touch each other's space.
I see that.
So that we can just become the best version of ourselves within that space. But being a desk host in the past, doing interviews, some of the biggest events in Dota, right? Like you've been around the block and you have that extra little oomph where sometimes when like I said, teacher and student,
Yeah.
I'm like the student sometimes in the middle of the class that's just kind of taking
Are
notes.
you comfortable with, are you comfortable playing there's a great expression for it, playing the heel? As in like acknowledging, like, or like how often have you asked questions you know the answer to? Like, have you done that? Because that is the way. Like that's something I learned through years of desk hosting, and it's something I desperately try and impart onto new desk hosts in the space or anyone that's kind of taking that role. And it's not something that comes naturally, I think, because especially when it's like a video game community, you know how the Reddits and the forums work is like, I need to prove myself. I need to I know that too. I knew that. But the truth is like if you come in and plead ignorance, you go, why is that happening? I might know, or I might have an idea, but I'm definitely not going to articulate it as well as Mo or Chad. And so I will do that. And like for those that are blind to who sit there and go, he really doesn't know anything. It's like, well, dude, I've been watching this game now for most of my fucking life.
Yeah. You're playing the part.
And I think that leads to, getting some of that more out of Chad, and I think that's something people are understandably cautious of, but I swear it's like the secret sauce in terms of setting someone else up.
Okay.
I really advocate for that. As a host and play-by-play, when it's much better, I act in a way that means that the information is presented in the best way, even if it means that I'm going to be perceived as like the inquisitive dumb one.
Right.
Fine by me.
I think you're confident in that.
Yeah, fine by me.
And anybody who knows you also knows that is an element of your performance.
Yeah, sure, exactly.
It's your comfort. All right, man. We're getting towards, I think, the tail end. You should also be getting ready to leave.
I do need to go and have a shower.
So I got a couple more open questions to
where
just ice it out, man.
Where does it go?
What inspires you?
What inspires me?
Who or what?
Yeah.
Activities, individuals?
I think for sure, actually individualism, or I'm very inspired by people that have been presented with the same reality as me. Obviously that's highly up for debate. Reality, perception is reality. But in terms of we're in the same world, same set of stimuli, and people that still are willing to present themselves as they see fit without the limitations of expectation, trying to fit in. I think school is the best perfect example. All of us going through that schooling system, go through that process of okay, well, I want people to like me. Every human wants to be liked. That's a survival instinct. If I'm not liked, I'm not going to be part of the nomadic tribe, and I'm not going to get my food. So I've got to do that shit. And I think people that go through all of that and still are willing to, through their own, some people will do it in multiple different facets, whether it's through their physical appearance, through the way in which they speak to each other, the way in which they entertain themselves. There's so many different characters we meet across esports, and a lot of them have gotten to that point, and I find that really admirable, where they know who they are, they know what they like, they're not ashamed, and they're not afraid to admit what they don't. And I think that leads people to a really healthy space that I want to get to. I'm chasing as well. I think that really inspires me when I see people authentically existing and authentically expressing, and it's unique to each of us. And the more I see people with these layers of masks on that they think they have to wear because who they are is not enough or is not worthy, I think that shit's really fucking sad, and I find it really hard to kind of find common ground with people. I'm not saying I can do it or I'm perfect at it, but when I see all those layers on you, it's like, I don't know who you are. Like, this interaction gives me nothing. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to like the person you think I want you to be.
Person you present as.
Yeah, I'm like that shit's whack. Sorry, is this a swearing podcast?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I apologize.
We don't have sponsors.
I have my potty mouth.
Get it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, get it out. All right. Well, that's good to know. I think
What inspires you, Connor?
what inspires me, authenticity. Again.
Yeah.
And I think just being proud of whatever it is you love.
Yes.
And to me, that's people. I love the people. The people that I love, I'm proud of. That's why I associate with them, and that's why they're in my life. And the things that I love, I'm proud of as well. Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I like that.
I think if you love something, then don't hide it. Don't hide it, because going above and beyond and all in on something that you're passionate about is how I wound up here, and I just hope others can find that same path some way. You know.
I wonder if I can find this tweet. I did it ages ago. Yeah. Okay. What year was this? This is when I had that same breakthrough for the first time. 2018. 24th of September 2018. I did this tweet saying, "I know a tweet achieves nothing, but for my younger followers especially, the earlier you realize that being disinterested and unimpressed doesn't make you cooler, the better. The more you allow yourself to be engaged and interested in something, the happier you'll be." That was like, baby's first, like kind of realizing like, oh, like I was that guy. Like I was, the cool guys are being dismissive about that. So that's what I have to be dismissive about too, etc. And like, I just think, yeah, I agree. When someone, it doesn't matter what it is, when you know, I too, like I really enjoy interacting with people. I really enjoy finding, people that will push me, test me. We don't have to be the same person. I actually really cherish it when there are heavy differences in our character, but we can still find common ground.
Yes.
But I really do. I have such admiration for that when people are just, God, if you hit the right question, you ask someone the right thing, like, so, like, what were you doing? Or like, what did you end up doing? And then you just see their eyes light up, and it's something they can talk about for hours. Everyone has something.
Yep.
And when they do light up, it could be, I don't care what it is, model trains, fucking types of flowers, like whatever it is that's captured your attention, and you can talk about it passionately, and you can teach me something that I would never have known, and I'll forever remember that because it's something that you taught me because of your niche obsession. That's living.
That's life.
Yeah, that's the real stuff. And I think that the more we encourage people to like find that, which everything's connected. This is my new thing. Have you read Da Vinci quoted that? I'm not smart enough to understand exactly what he meant.
No, go on.
But he says everything is connected, and like how he was an artist, but he also was like inventing like deep diving suits, like breathing underwater helicopters, and we're talking hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of years before any of this stuff was actually realistic. Yeah. But he had and one of his conclusions was everything is connected. Like unless there was a lot of psilocybin around his parts, he was just in a different domain.
Yeah.
And I think the more that we have these conversations, the more I'm starting to kind of get an idea of what he's talking about, in the sense that like if you look at anything, like we were drawing parallels to some of our Counter-Strike stories with like the Jedi and the Sith, and and you can take that as far as you want. You can take that as far as you want, and I mean that's a bad example, but you know what I'm saying is that it's really interesting to hear that everything around us, you can put as little or as much attention to it, and in order to live in the present, I think you do. It's a choice you make every day. Every day. The people you're interacting with, the way they're feeling. Like I've been really trying recently when I have not negative interactions with strangers, but like they come across as a bit cold, and I have like rejection sensitivity, where like if I feel like someone doesn't like me or is like I've done something to upset them, I don't know, I feel
Didn't
it.
give you a chance, even though you've done nothing wrong.
Oh, injustice bothers me too.
Injustice
So like the combination of injustice and social rejections, whatever it's called. Yeah, that shit bugs me. But I've now been just quickly reminding myself, like, you have bad days all the time, Alex. You're probably cold and blah to these people, to other people that you're through your lens, you don't even think about it. Yeah, and like I just cut people some slack, as I should be, for myself. Give them as much patience as I'm trying to give myself.
I think it's a beautiful place to end, man.
Yeah.
Be patient with yourselves, and find your passions and try to chase that shit. And if you're lucky enough, you'll find a passion that you share with people who you can sit down next to on a waterborne gazebo while ducks fight, baguettes get smashed, birds chirp, winds blow. I've been looking forward to recording a Scrawndawgin on the road in an obscure, weird environment.
This was so cool, man.
And I'm sure that there's someone at home who just turned it off because these ducks are too loud.
Yeah, respect.
And I get that, guys, but this was really fun for me, and I hope you enjoyed yourself.
Yeah, thank you for the invite. Thank you for having me. This is cool. Like, I mean,
Thank you for your insight too, Alex. I think that you are somebody who, in this space, has a lot of insight to offer, and it's not always about Counter-Strike. We don't need to talk about Counter-Strike. That's the point of Scrawndawgin, that we're people and we need more outlets than just sitting down and telling you which player had the highest stats yesterday.
100%. And it's all, I was about to say it's all connected again, but I guess, as in, all of those people playing the counter,
Yeah.
they wake up and brush their teeth just like everyone else.
As do we.
As we should actually.
Speaking of which, Alex has to go brush his teeth right now, take
Yeah.
a shower, and get in for the last day of Legend Stage.
Yo,
I can only say, I hope you had a good time, bro, because I did.
thank you for having me. This
Thank
has
you.
been lovely.